off the bottom, they come off the top. So as they retire, you're not paying out that increase.
Yes.
Yes.
You mentioned at the end, I think this is going to kind of collect a lot of these questions into one, but as a suggestion, you mentioned at the onset of the meeting that one of your most predictable items is your inbound revenue, within reason, fairly predictable via the property taxes. Being that the district has I'm sure, quite an elaborate cross-section of professions in the private sector, wouldn't it, in terms of salary, healthcare expenditures, pensions, everything, to peg it to the average in the private sector? In other words, peg it to the region to which the district serves, so that they will move in tandem and hopefully disparities like this don't occur in the long term?
That is our goal.
Could you use in CPA, CPI, which is reality businesses and that kind of.
So we're trying to get those two things in order, and we do some of those things. We look at all our costs, and we're working towards that. So these are some possible solutions, and we know where we want to get. We're just going to figure out the steps to get there. And this is the first process. And what we need from you is, are there other things that we haven't thought of?
Did you guys look at non-contracted salaries, like administrative salaries?
Rob asked, did we look at non-contracted salaries? It's a very small percentage in the district. We have 5 collective bargaining groups, and the administrators and some central office people, higher level management personnel are the only non-contracted. So
Food service.
Food service.
Yeah, food service.
Citizens for Accountability has prepared some suggestions for this forum, and I don't know if you're done making your presentation, but I was wondering if you could let me know when it would be appropriate to share some of our thoughts with the group.
Right now.
I'm Jen Zold, and I'm a member of Citizens for Accountability. We're a group of just District 15 residents, and we're active and interested in improving our community schools. It gives us pleasure to commend the administration of District 15 for opening up the budgeting discussion to the public. Citizens for Accountability in District 15 have long advocated for greater discourse within the community. The administration's current leadership has made great strides in facilitating open forums, so now it's up to us, parents with children in schools, as well as the community at large, to utilize this open door. We have closely examined the preliminary budget for 2012-13, which has spending exceeding revenues by $9.6 million. The forecast for the following 6 years is for continued budget deficits, which will shrink our reserves from $55 million to about $4 million in 2016, as was said. Obviously, decisions have to be made and steps taken to address this. In response to this dire situation, we have spent many hours analyzing finances and constructing a list of detailed recommendations. If these are implemented, it would bring the budget closer into balance while also retaining the current teaching staff level, educational programs, and classroom sizes currently in place. We have also included recommendations which will bend the spending curve back into line with revenue over the long term. We realize one or more of the recommendations could be controversial. However, we believe strongly they must be put on the table and given serious consideration if the quality of our school district is to be upheld. If they are not considered, we fear what that could mean for the positive direction the district is taking, and more importantly, for the education of the community's children. Now, here's a very brief summary of our recommendations. A modest adjustment to the administrators' salaries. A 1-year salary freeze for all other employees. All employees assume a greater share of healthcare premiums. Examine the substitute budget with the goal of reductions. Conduct a district office audit with the goal of reducing expenses. And have employees identified on the administrative compensation report assume a greater share of their teacher retirement system contributions. These recommendations could result in reducing outlays of more than $5 million. This is just a starting point in finding solutions to solve District 15's deficit problem. We have copies of this letter, the recommendations, the 6 recommendations we made, and supporting materials to support what we have proposed. And they can be at the table up front there if anyone would like to take one. Also, these documents can be found at our website at www.d15citizens.org. Citizens for Accountability is not a closed group. We always welcome input. Thank you for your consideration.
Just a legal hypothetical question, trying to figure out on some of the extracurricular activities. What are the district's options to offer those not on a whoever signs up basis, but on a for fee basis? So that, sure, you can have music in the mornings, but you pay for that privilege. Sure, you can do whatever activity after school, but like you would go to the Y or like you would go anywhere else, you pay to join that activity. Is that a legal option for the school district?
Mm-hmm.
And is that something you're considering?
We've talked about it. We didn't think that the savings would be great enough, but we'll look at it again.
That would cost the average parent who has kids in school more money because, as you stated at the December meeting, 35% of our population in the schools are on free lunch program, meaning they're not meeting the financial, whatever it is. They're I won't say poor, but they're under the average line for that. So if they want to join something, they're going to get a scholarship. My rates will go up because I have to pay for them. And not just mine, I mean, everybody's. But I don't see where that a pay for play would work, at least not in my eyes.
And that's some of the discussion we had as well. Good thoughts. Yes.
With regards to the music program, my wife and I moved into Palatine with the expectation that when our family comes along, we will be sending our children to those schools. I'm a musician. I grew up with with music, and I can say that the music programs in the high schools and especially Plum Grove's music program were definite calls to us, and I can't possibly imagine getting rid of music. My wife and I would definitely plan on moving out of the district to another one that has those opportunities. That wouldn't deprive my children of the opportunities I had. And along with that, although I had great opportunities in music, the elementary music teachers that I had, when I was in elementary school, I had 3 music teachers over a 2-year period because our school paid absolutely terrible for its music teacher, because it was pretty much like I asked earlier about the Schaumburg system. It was a 1-day-a-week thing, and the teacher got paid, looking back in hindsight, probably maybe $10,000 for her teaching there. And the turnover rate, I mean, we had, like I said, we had 3 teachers in 2 years, and it was absolutely terrible for me. I really didn't start enjoying music until I had consistency in a music program. So I strongly disagree with cutting music, cutting band, cutting orchestra, cutting the fine arts. Like I said, it was one of the big reasons I moved to Palatine. And if that's gone, I will move out. I'll move to Killdeer. I'll move to Buffalo Grove, because I will not deprive my children of music.
Thank you for your input. Yes.
Who chooses the health insurance provider? The school board?
We're really self-funded.
Question?
Thank you. Who chooses the healthcare provider? Our district, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, is self-funded. And because we're so large, we're self-funded, and so we have a service provider, right?
Well, yeah, we're self-funded. There's a PPO plan and an HMO plan. Both are through Blue Cross. So Blue Cross is a provider. We're self-funded on the PPO, and obviously the HMO is a fully funded program. Gallagher Benefit Services is our consultant on the benefit issues.
And because of state law, we're required to bid those if we
Yes.
change providers. So we would have to put out a bid and stipulations, and we have to take the lowest responsible bid.
How many librarians are employed in the district? What is the trend in terms of the number of librarians the last 5 years?
We
Forecast for
have-
librarians, and how are you using technology to potentially reduce that?
We have 20 librarians, one for each school right now. In 2005, 2006, we cut the clerical aid to the librarian, so there used to be 2 staff members in each library, and we reduced that down to 1 right now. So, did that answer your question?
At some point, I suppose you could have a self-service library, but with the young kids it's a little difficult. So we've got just one right now. Let's see. Ask the question.
Yeah, just my general feelings. I agree, I do not want to see band and orchestra cut. I don't know if my kids will even do it. I hope they do. I thought it was very important to me growing up. My kids are at Pleasant Hill, and the parent volunteers make a huge difference. They take a lot of, they really are making a difference in the classroom, reading and helping out. So certainly the seniors and the parents, making use of them, where there's parents in there every day. I think a 28 classroom of kindergartners or first graders is crazy, even with parent volunteers. I can see increasing it, but I think that's starting to get really, really painful. Again, administrator cuts. I know everybody else is taking a cut. I've had one raise in 5 years. The head of my company's still making his $1 million bonus, so, I think everybody's got to take a part in giving the pain. So.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah?
For the health plans that were mentioned, there's the PPO and the HMO. Are the details of the health plans part of the contract negotiations, or how much discretion does the districts have in setting those choices?
That's subject to the level of benefit itself is subject to negotiation. So, to answer your question, yes. It's part
of the negotiation.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we unilaterally change the benefit levels, co-pays, deductibles, etc.
Right, or even like swapping out, like a PPO plan for an HSA plan or something like that.
That would be subject to negotiation.
That would be part
as
of
well.
negotiation.
Yes.
On that chart, what's the bottom line amount there? You itemized some values on some of the other items, but it's not clear what, out of that 6.4 million, what the bottom line there, using fund reserves.
These are all flexible. They're all dependent. We have to go to the bargaining units in order to see any savings with benefits and salaries. So this is a smorgasbord that we'd like to get to 6.4. We have no control right now. We can't guarantee any savings in salaries and benefits for most of our employees.
But, sorry, it looks like that's a calculated number. 6419633 is pretty accurate, pretty precise. So I was assuming that
to the dollar.
use of fund balance reserves, you've got a number that you plugged in there, and I'm just asking, what is that number?
That is the difference between the previous list that we had 3.2 million in savings and get us to the 9.6 to get us to zero balance. Let me go back and show you. So we started over here with this column of 9.6. This column.
Okay, all right. Okay, so all right. So here's the other. Because it's a little bit misleading then, folks, because it looks like you're itemizing savings up to 6.4 million without indicating the makeup of the 6.4. But if it's a plug, it means that there's really nothing. There's nothing itemized other than 3.195 million.
Right.
Okay. Everything else at this stage is a bit of a wish. There you go.
And it's seeking feedback from all of you and the other groups on which ones we should try to accomplish first and which ones we should accomplish.
I just wanted to understand the context.
You say 85% of your overhead stuff, you got to negotiate.
85% of our costs are salaries and benefits, and most of those are negotiated.
Where the real money is, it's a big percentage.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
There is some of that, for sure.
If you were to take the total of all of those things listed, do you have a rough ballpark for, because you said this is pretty much a buffet of options that could be implemented, obviously excluding the negotiated benefits, all the cuts and reductions, do you have a draft for what that totals? Or is that also the 6.4?
We get very close to that 6.4 with that total list, except for this negotiated one. Not all the way there, but we get pretty close.
So anything the teachers were to give up would potentially save stuff off of that list?
Right.
Okay.
Any other groups, I mean, just, we can't place this all on the teachers. But any negotiated savings that we get from any of the bargaining groups would reduce the need for these other items.
But now this number is only next year.
This is just next year.
Doesn't get you next year.
It gets us, as Mike said, it gets us a long ways down the road, but we still have some work to do. And as I said earlier, it's the first step in the process, and it's an important first step.
Now, what more are we gonna do tonight other than Q&A?
Nothing.
More slides?
I have one more.
Can we turn off the slides? Because it's not addressing the root cause of the problem.
We could, if you want,
I think it's not addressing the root cause, which is the salary schedule, and CPA just keeps on increasing, there's no limit on teacher pay. There's multiple, I was able to get the PhDs to get off the pay scale about 4 years ago. I said there was no need to have a gym teacher being a PhD teaching my child. Now it comes back to, we pay teachers more for graduate school, all that needs to be negotiable. Maybe when the teachers get up to a certain level, they're stuck there until they get a graduate degree.
Well, I think I can hear your frustration, and my frustration would be that if we pin everything on negotiations, then we have nothing to go forward with to make changes for next year. We have to make some steps, some definite steps in reducing the budget for next year prior to going to negotiations. And so I'm asking for some feedback here on what things.
But the root cause of the problem is that salary schedule has been built up over years after years after years, and we're stuck with it. And until they address that issue, there's nothing. This is only for 1 year. Next year it's going to be another deficit.
Listed, you saw there listed was one of the items we want to work on, negotiating a contract with our groups that we have negotiated contracts with to help us solve the problem.
Yeah, that needs to be addressed more than that.
I don't think you would find any disagreement. Yes.
Yeah, just, going back to the music piece, luckily my kid's, actually one's a teacher now, so that's interesting, but when you look at all the extracurriculars and all that stuff that seems to be what's slated for cutting, everything I read about says that those are the things that keep society from going the wrong direction. Those are good for kids, those are good, all those programs, and yet when I looked at the list, a lot of the things we were thinking of cutting were those things that help our kids.
I share that
Just my
frustration. Yeah,
opinion.
no, I think you're absolutely right. We're talking about things that we have control over right now to try to correct the situation, because we certainly don't want to get into the position where we come to you after it's too late. We don't have any money, and next year we have to slash and cut many programs.
Wasn't that an Illinois problem?
We want to solve this before we get done.
Is the district responsible for the fuel costs for the transportation?
Is the district responsible for the fuel cost of transportation? We get reimbursed for part of our fuel, but we are responsible for it.
Has there been any research on alternative fuels since they're diesel machines? Biodiesel, it's on Colfax. It's available locally. Probably cut that in half tomorrow.
Mike, I don't know, are we allowed to use biodiesel? I think there's an issue.
There are many schools using it. I don't know about Illinois, but there are many schools using biodiesel for their diesel buses.
I haven't looked at biodiesel in a couple of years. Last time I looked at it a couple of years ago, the technology wasn't there for school buses. And again, that's about 2 or 3 years ago since I've looked at that issue. I'll look at it again.
It has changed rapidly, so.
Have they looked at outsourcing the school bus system?
We have talked about that.
How far have you
We have a negotiated contract with them right now that we can't get out of. So that's not an option now.
Just went union a year or two.
I'm sorry?
You just went union a year or two ago.
We entered an agreement with the contract, and we have to honor that contract. Once the contract is over, then that would be a possibility. Yes?
I assume that the projections that you showed were based on the current numbers. So if you manage to address what you're looking at, the changes to balance this year, how does that improve the outlook for future years? Wouldn't those changes then carry forward into the future years and make the future years look better too?
And that's what Mike said, that we would be in a much better position in the upcoming years. We still would have a few steps to take in order to get those two lines together.
But it wouldn't be as bad as when we started out.
No, it wouldn't be nearly as bad.
Do they compound?
They do compound.
Oh, yeah, if you save $10 million next year, you don't spend it next year, you don't spend it the year after, you don't spend it the year after.
I mean, like, would a $10 million reduction in this year end up saving more than 10 in subsequent years? Are there any changes this year that will save more money over subsequent years?
Well, some of your increases your increases would then compound on a smaller
But nothing-
basis.
nothing
So when you
substantial.
put that in there, yeah, I mean, you would see a compounding effect on the savings.
But nothing too substantial?
It depends where there are. It depends where they ultimately come to.
But 10 million this year
It's
is
more
also
important
10
that the
million next
compounding
year.
debt is really what the big issue, not we really can't compound savings that way.
I know you say you're looking for input, and I know there are board members here. I just would like to make sure we also mention the class sizes and increase in the class targets. It sounds like it's one kid. So these are average numbers. So we're talking, it doesn't mean we're just going to put one kid in every class. Somebody's going to end up with 35 kids in their class. And some other school that has less kids are going to end up with 18, and oh, we made an average. So just be very wary. It sounds, oh, okay, we'll add one kid per class and save 700,000, or do the 49 staff members. It's just 2 kids, but it's not. So as from our perspective, people I've talked to, we would not like to see class sizes on average.
Thank you.
The plan that you have up here has the Board of Ed approving a reduction plan at the March 14th board meeting, but realistically, you won't be able to negotiate any of these salary benefit savings in time to make that decision, is that correct?
Right, I'd say that's accurate. Even though the teachers union particularly has said they're open to the idea of trying to save some money on healthcare benefits, I don't see us having that accomplished. I'll go here and then.
It was brought up, somebody in the back brought up earlier, the concept of the community and the teachers and everybody getting together in the same room at the same time. And that kind of just got glossed over. Oh, we can't let that happen. That's what has to happen. Because what's going to happen if it doesn't is the doors are going to close, the contracts are getting negotiated, the doors are going to open, here's what we all agreed to, and the community is going to be up at arms because, wait, you didn't listen to what we had to say. Or the teachers are going to be up at arms because, wait, that's not what we wanted. If we don't get a true dialogue going at some point in time, this will never go away. It will not go away until all parties involved sit down and talk about how to solve the problem.
Thank you. Rob?
To bring some clarification, in one of the teacher contracts from a different school district, after 30 years of working in the district, after a master's plus in education, they can max out at $107,000 in their salary. And I don't know of anybody in the corporate world that would, I don't know, perhaps be satisfied with that. But that's where it's at. It's not this unlimited amount of money. The other thing, any kinds of training that educators have to take It's out of their pocket, and they're obligated by state regulation. It is not an option. In order to maintain your certification, you have to take extra coursework and training. That is not an option. The other thing, I don't think I want some idiot off the street teaching my kids math, science, technology without some proper training, and especially with issues of safety for children, for all children, with no bias of racism against their race, against their financial background. I want somebody in there who's qualified to work with my child. At all levels of arts, math, science, all of it. I don't know as if we want to dumb down in order to pacify strict dollar talk. We're talking about children. We're not talking about dollars in the sense of dogs. These are our children. This is our community. And the bottom line is when people hear about the quality of schools, it's the real estate. They want to come because they know that the schools are top-notch. It's not the other way around. And when towns die, it's because the schools close their doors. It's not because of the churches, it's not because of the fire department. It's because of the schools closing down their doors. You need to make sure to be smart about this, and just being reactionary and hateful the way this community has been for a very long time. We need to close this gap. I highly agree that the PTA, for example, another suggestion, needs to be revamped. It can't be just a playtime for little social communities of moms who just sort of click together and